Presented by the 2015 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car for 17 years in a row and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Welcome to Anaheim, California. Another gorgeous day here in Southern California, and the Blue Jays have really enjoyed their stay here. They've won the first 2 games of this series. That guarantees them a series win against the Angels for the first time since 2007. They've done it with their booming big bats here in Anaheim.
Well, this is one of the most prolific offenses in all of Major League Baseball, and they have been on display in Game 1 and Game 2 here in Anaheim, just punishing Angels pitching. And we've seen some young pitching. We saw Santiago Friday night. We saw Andrew Heaney yesterday, but these young kids are finding out when they make mistakes to these hitters, a lot of damage is going to be done. And again, this Blue Jays lineup just showing how deep it is and just so many weapons 1 through 9.
They have scored 24 runs in this series, and it's very difficult to imagine how anybody could shut them down right now, as hot as they're swinging the bats. Take a look at the lineup for John Gibbons. Tulowitzki, top of the order, then Josh Donaldson. Over his last 22 games, he's hit .369 with 18 extra base hits and driven in 32 runs. Now think about it. 32 RBIs in 22 games, and right down in that cleanup spot. Edwin Encarnacion, he's almost as hot. Over the 18-game hit streak, he's hit .379 with 13 extra base hits and 14 RBIs. Encarnacion, too. He had a pair of doubles last night to extend that hit streak.
And for the Angels, it'll be 27-year-old Garrett Richards trying to change things for this Angels pitching staff. He's making his 24th start of the season. Since the start of last year, he's held opposing hitters to a .219 batting average. That's good for 3rd in the American League. 6 career games against the Blue Jays. 4 of those starts, he's 2-2 with a 4.44 ERA. Last time out for Richards was against the White Sox. He earned the win, going 7 innings, giving up just 2 earned runs.
Well, defense has been a concern for this Angel ball club. Mike Scioscia's team has always been proud of the way they could catch it. Not the case this season. As a team, they've committed 71 errors. It's Murphy, Trout, and Calhoun in the outfield. Caleb Coward has done a nice job. This will be his 6th start for the Angels at third base. Ibar and Green up the middle. C.J. Cron making his 23rd start at first base. And Carlos Perez back behind the plate for Garrett Richards.
Cole Calhoun in right field again for Mike Scioscia today. Calhoun had his 8th outfield assist last night, throwing out Edwin Encarnacion at third base on an absolutely perfect one-hop throw to the third base bag. Edwin trying to tag on the deep fly ball from second to third base.
So we are set. Troy Tulowitzki will step in the box. Tulowitzki for the Blue Jays, batting .207. And he again scored another run last night. He was 0 for 5 in that ball game. First pitch is upstairs, and we are underway. Another high fastball, 96. Last season, before he injured his knee, Garrett Richards had the highest fastball velocity in the American League. He really has a great arm.
Great arm. He'll average up around 96 this season, and he's got that cut fastball. It's a 4-seamer, but it's just got some natural cut to it.
97 up and in to Tulowitzki. Tulowitzki behind Garrett Richards, 1-2. Is popped up and playable. Perez and Cron. Cron, the first baseman, gets there and makes the catch. It is a gorgeous afternoon here, and that's generally what it is in Southern California. 26 degrees and not a cloud in the sky. Sun could be an issue on those pop-ups and fly balls today, Joe.
And you see Cron coming over right there. Sporting the sunglasses, of course, today, but he was fighting even that ball a little bit as he's fading to his left. Finally gloving that ball.
Well, here is the man, Josh Donaldson. What a season he has put together. He's the first in the majors to drive in 100. And he doesn't waste any time. He rips it past the third baseman down in the left field corner. Stay hot, Josh. Another double for Donaldson. That gives him 34 doubles and 34 home runs.
And what a different approach. What do you do as a pitcher? What's he trying to do? Garrett Richards just trying to get ahead with that overpowering fastball, but look at where the catcher's set up, trying to go down and away on Donaldson. They missed their spot again. They've been doing it all series, but Josh has just been punishing them.
Boy, he is locked in right now. That base hit pushes his average up to 303. Jose Bautista, he's got 84 ribbies for the season. Up and in. Joe, I expect to see a little more of that this afternoon from Richards.
I think any Mike Scioscia-led club, I think Mike Scioscia, of course, the former catcher, and knows all about calling a game. When you see hitters doing what the Blue Jays have done in these first 2 games of the series, you have got to throw the fastball on the inside part of the plate to these hitters to keep them honest.
Bautista fouls it off.
If you can get that fastball in on these Blue Jays hitters, you just want to make them conscious of that, and then Richards can go back away with that cutter and the slider combination that he has. But you have to get them thinking in there, trying to fly open just a bit, trying to cheat on that fastball, especially with his velocity.
1-1 count to Bautista. Breaking ball up over his head. And Bautista, of course, didn't like it where it was, but it was a breaking ball. You know, Bautista and Donaldson, they have driven in more runs as a tandem than anybody else in baseball. They've combined to drive in 184 runs.
Richards can be a little erratic. He's a lot of wild pitches. He's got a lot of movement on his pitches. The 4-seam fastball cuts. He also throws the 2-seam fastball that really will dive down and in on right-handed batters. And because of the velocity, it's a hard guy to catch. Very difficult to chase these pitches, especially you start missing on the other side of the plate.
Bautista pops it back out of play. Well, we mentioned Bautista and Donaldson, 184 RBIs between them. That's 22 more than the next pair of hitters. Colorado's Nolan Arenado and Carlos Gonzalez have driven in 162. With Bautista and Donaldson by far the most prolific run producers in all of baseball. Full count pitch. Ground ball, base hit. Donaldson will be stopped at third as Bautista pulled it through the hole on the left side. Edwin Encarnacion will come to the plate, and once you get by Bautista, Donaldson, then you got to deal with Encarnacion.
Just when you think you've gotten through 2 of the best hitters in the game, then you've got to deal with Edwin, and now Edwin's coming up with runners on the corner. But these are just 3 of the most prolific sluggers in the game, RBI producers, and these guys know how to drive them in. We'll see what Edwin can do here now with, of course, the double play in order. Garrett Richards is a ground ball pitcher. Edwin will be looking to try to elevate something here to get that runner home from third.
Blue Jays scored 3 runs in the first here on Friday night. It is a challenge for starters to get settled in against this Blue Jay lineup in the first inning.
They just don't give you any time. It starts with Tulo, and he's struggling right now. Really, he gets going, but as soon as you get into that 2, 3, 4, there's just no break, and it's really hard to get into any kind of groove as a pitcher. You cannot afford any mistakes.
There's a fly ball to left field. Donaldson is tagging at third. Murphy sets up, and he's going to throw it toward the plate, but it's cut off, and the Blue Jays have a first inning lead. Encarnacion with the sacrifice fly, his 71st ribby of the season.
That's an outstanding job by Edwin, and just as I just mentioned, a ground ball pitcher, he's looking for one pitch to get him out of this inning. As a hitter, you're trying to make sure you get underneath that sinker and drive something deep to the outfield. And how about that? We just talked about the RBI guys in this league. These guys can get it done.
Blue Jays have done a terrific job with runners at third, less than 2 outs. Encarnacion had a sacrifice fly in last night's game, as did Cliff Pennington. Justin Smoke, the first baseman.
It's a good plan of attack as a hitter. You can see Edwin with that fastball in the inside corner, really pulling his hands inside, trying to elevate that baseball. It's a great philosophy. Rick Jacoby continues to talk about that and the approach and driving that runner in from third base.
Smoke homered in the 7th inning on Wednesday night. It came against Jose Alvarez. Smoke was batting as a right-handed hitter. It was his 12th home run of the season. Breaking ball down and in. Richards quickly ahead 0-2.
It's a good slider from Richards, and he's going to need to utilize that. You cannot just continue to pound fastballs, even when you're throwing 97 miles per hour against these hitters. These guys can hit 97 all day. You've got to have that secondary pitch. That was a very good slider that time from Richards, going down and in on the left-handed hitting Smoke.
Richards strikes out Smoke, but the Blue Jays strike first. Donaldson with a double, Bautista single, and Encarnacion. That trio has been productive all season long. 1-0 Jays. Mike Scioscia's Angels have really scuffled to score runs recently. Cole Calhoun, he's been swinging a hot bat in this series. He leads off, then Mike Trout. Over his last 14 games, Mike Trout has just 9 hits, only 3 RBIs, and he's punched out 16 times in those 14 games. And then David Murphy, he's hitting in the cleanup spot. He's got a 6-game hit streak. He has doubled in this series, 7 hits in his last 22 at-bats, and Mike Trout just has to get going for this team to do anything offensively.
For the Blue Jays, it'll be 40-year-old right-handed knuckleballer R.A. Dickey making his 26th start of the season. He's recorded 6+ innings in 38 of his last 45 outings. That's dating back to June of last season. Recorded a complete game win against these Angels on May 21st. That was at Rogers Center. His first complete game at Rogers Center as a Blue Jay. Last time out, Dickey did not factor in the decision at Philadelphia. He went 4+ innings, giving up 5 earned runs. That snapped a string of 20 straight for 3 earned runs or less for Toronto's pitching staff.
Here's Cole Calhoun. Calhoun 1 for 8 against R.A. Dickey. He has set career highs in home runs and RBIs. He hit his 19th home run here on Friday night. Well, we mentioned Josh Thole is back with the Blue Jays. He is back behind the plate for R.A. Dickey, and this is a familiar sight for Dickey and one that he really relishes. Dickey and Thole were together in 2012 with the Mets when Dickey had a 20-6 season, led the National League in strikeouts, and won the National League Cy Young Award. Comfort level is always important for a pitcher, Joe.
Oh, it's so important, and I think just the confidence that R.A. can have now pitching to him. It's a well-deserved day off for Russell Martin, too.
Russell Martin's banged up, as most catchers are this time of the season, but I think just the mental wear and tear of having to deal with that knuckleball every 5 days wore him out.
And that combined with struggling with the bat, it's one thing to kind of worry about your offense and to be working on your swing, but then there's still a lot at stake defensively.
R.A. Dickey hits Cole Calhoun. That'll put him on to start this ball game for the Angels. Let's take a look at the defense behind Dickey. And boy, this has been a welcome improvement. It's made the pitching staff a lot better. They've got confidence now with Revere, Pilar, and Bautista in the outfield. They can cover a lot of ground. On the infield, it's Donaldson and Tulowitzki on the left side. Ryan Goins moves back to second base with the right-hander on the mound. Smokes at first and Tolley behind the plate for Dickey.
And as mentioned, Josh recalled from Buffalo. He's making his 9th start. The last one was June 1st at Washington. He caught R.A. Dickey in a 2-0 loss against Jordan Zimmerman and the Nationals. That was in game 1 of that doubleheader. Blue Jays came back and beat Max Scherzer in the nightcap, and that was the start of their great run the month of June when they went 18-9.
So they started that 11-game winning streak. This is Mike Trout. Drives this ball to right. Bautista's on the run. The ball is sinking. He's not going to get it. He dives for it. Calhoun had to hold up. He's being waved home. Trout's right behind him. He'll stop Trout at third. And just like that, the Angels have tied it. Joe, you mentioned last night in the 6th inning when Trout ripped that ball up the middle on a 4-3 ground out. You said that's a bad sign for the Blue Jays, and it continues here with his first AB.
It looked like the old Mike Trout, or the Mike Trout that most of baseball watches on the highlight reels at night, when he keeps his hands inside the baseball, he lets the ball travel. And what a perfect day to employ that approach against the knuckleballer Dickey. Real good swing again, hard hit ball, and it's exactly what happens when Mike Trout starts locking it in.
For Trout, that's his 3rd triple of the season. RBI number 73. It's a 1-1 game. That ball is driven to center and deep. Pilar setting up. Trout's got terrific speed. Here's the throw toward home, but it'll be caught. And Pujols has given the Angels the lead. Trout and Pujols, that's the combination the Angels need to win ball games. Angels. Last night, after Street pitched the top of the 9th, Houston Street came in the dugout and fired his glove up against the bench. And then he began a tirade that really covered everybody in that dugout. He said, I'm sick of losing. I hate to lose like this. Somebody's got to do something about it. And you could see how animated he was in the dugout. And, Joe, that might have sparked this team and woken him up a bit.
That's just what a team needs sometimes. We've watched for 2 days how flat this Mike Scioscia team has looked. And that's not a Mike Scioscia-looking team at all. Houston Street, the veteran, throwing just a inning of work last night. And he came in and vented some frustrations. Maybe he sparked his buddies just a little bit.
The Angels were 17-3, and then they went 9-20. They really fall deep into the AL West, and David Murphy jumps on that knuckleball. He singles to right. Hit batter, triple, sac fly, and now a single. That's the start for the Angels.
The knuckleball just stayed on the plate, right into the barrel of the left-handed hitting Murphy. A down and in lefty rake zone, they like to call it. It's kind of a happy zone for left-handed hitters.
Eric Ibar, the shortstop. Ibar had a couple of hits in last night's game. A strike to the Angels shortstop. Yeah, this is a dangerous team this afternoon as they were limping through the first 2 games, and Houston Street, their closer, got their attention. Mike Scioscia was standing right in the dugout when he heard Street go off, and he was probably quietly applauding it. About time somebody spoke up.
Manager can only do so much, right, to try to fire up your troops. Eventually, these guys got to take care of themselves, and Houston Street took it upon himself last night. Try to spark this team, realizing they've just got a little over a month to turn things around here.
That's a foul into the seats down the left side. Houston Street has that fiery personality, and he comes by it honestly. His father, James Street, was the quarterback of the Texas Longhorns, who won the national championship. Under his leadership as the quarterback, the Longhorns went 20-0. And he was also a two-time All-American pitcher. So he's got great genes, and James Street and Houston now, for that matter, they're idols in Texas. Upstairs, snared by Tolley. It's 2-2.
Dickey has talked about one of the most important things for him in his resurgence and how well he has pitched his last couple months is he throws a harder knuckleball. That's when he gets more movement and more swings.
There's another base hit. Ibar cuts one through the left side of the infield. 3 hits this inning.
But what Dickey also alluded to is he talked about his pitching mechanics and how they are so important, probably even more than a traditional pitcher, because when his pitching mechanics are off just a hair, it can really alter the flight of his knuckleball. A couple of things he talks about is, number one, his head, and his head staying very still in his delivery, staying in line towards home plate. He's really worked on his stride length, and the big thing for him too is his hips. When his hips fly open, that elbow kind of it becomes a push, and that's when that knuckleball becomes flat.
C.J. Cron takes a strike.
Some struggle a little bit with that knuckleball in Philadelphia, and we're seeing it a little bit here today. So one little thing in that delivery can really throw him off, and it looks like he's fighting something right now.
Yeah, we talk about starting pitchers trying to get comfortable on the mound. Come out for the first inning, and he hit Cole Calhoun, and that set a bad tone for this inning. Cron homered in last night's game to dead center. Home run straightaway center. It came off Marco Estrada in the 5th. He had a double in Friday night's game. He's got a big long swing, and it actually might match up well with the knuckleball.
It actually does. When you get a big guy like that with a bit of a longer swing, it's a slower pitch. Most of R.A. Dickey's knuckleballs in the mid-70s, mid to upper 70s, and that can play right into the hands of a hitter like Cron.
There's another base hit to right. Murphy's being waved around third. Ibar goes first to third, and the Angels are all over Dickey here in the first. C.J. Cron with an RBI single to right.
It's a nice job by Cron. We just talked about a bigger guy with maybe a bit of a longer swing, but he looked pretty good on this swing, staying fairly short. Letting that ball get very deep, staying inside the ball. And that's what these hitters will do with the knuckleball. They'll let that ball get very deep in their stance. See how far that ball is behind him. Still catching it out front, but allowing it to travel, and he just shoots that to right field very easily.
So Pete Walker out to try to help R.A. in this situation. R.A. is trying to team up with his middle infielder, see who has coverage on a ground ball to the mound. 3-1 Angels. Carlos Perez, the catcher. Perez was shut out in last night's game, 0 for 4 with a strikeout. He shows bunt. That's something the Angels have done in the past. They will use that safety squeeze, especially with a catcher at the plate who doesn't run that well and is prone to hit into a double play.
And some speed at third base in Ibar. If he just gets a bunt down anywhere, a good jump by Ibar at third base, he scores easily.
Shows bunt again, and there's the bunt to the first baseman, and Smoke wisely lets it go. Smoke came in, and he thought, okay, I got a shot at the plate, but then he saw the spin on the ball, and he just let it go into foul ground.
That's an outstanding read by Justin Smoke. A lot of first basemen will just come and glove that and take the out, but he knew if he does that, he's giving up a run. When you're down 3-1 in the first inning already, you don't want to give up another run. Just a great read. He saw that it was a hard bunt and the rotation on the baseball that it was going to spin foul.
Now that was a safety squeeze where the runner at third doesn't break till he sees the ball safely on the ground. They're trying it again. You know what? Major league teams don't use this play enough. It's an easy play. All you got to do is bunt it halfway between the mound and first base, and you'll score a run every time. But then again, you got to have the batter execute it.
You have to get the bunt on the ground. Look like Chris Perez is fighting. Not easy to bunt a knuckleball, of course, but Carlos Perez has got to get that bat way out front, and you want to even do that even more and cheat. Get that bat way out there in front. All you have to do is get this baseball on the ground, and Ibar's probably scoring from third base.
It's a free RBI for Perez. But now with 2 strikes, it's a different story. Once again, the double play is in play. Fly ball to right. Ibar back to tag up. Bautista sets up. Here's the throw to the plate. It is late in on line, but the run comes across. Ibar slides in safely with the 4th run of the inning. Carlos Perez with the sacrifice fly.
Well, Perez salvaged his at bat, unable to get the bunt down, but Jose does everything right. He gets behind this baseball and tries to let it go, and I'm not so sure we've seen the 100% Jose Bautista arm from right field since that injury.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was a area. Well, you see the Blue Jays have just appealed that Ibar left early, but as Diaz, the third base umpire, indicated not the case. But yeah, I don't think Bautista is back to 100% after that April arm injury.
It's still a very good arm, but he has an outstanding arm when he's 100% healthy.
Yeah, there were situations on a fly ball at that depth where they wouldn't even run. Not the case anymore. 2 outs. This is the third baseman, Caleb Cowart, the 8th man to bat this inning. And he drills this ball. This is trouble. All the way off the warning track, up against the wall. Crone comes in to score. And it's a 5-run inning for the Angels. And that's going to get the Blue Jays bullpen up and stirring.
You see this knuckleball again, really center cut right out over the plate, about thigh high. Caleb Cowart makes no mistake drilling this ball into the right center gap, but again, we talk about Dickey's delivery, and he knows his delivery best. He knows his mechanics the best. Try to make some alterations, I'm sure, in that dugout between innings, but it's getting ugly early.
That's the 16th time the Angels have scored 5 runs or more in an inning. They're second to the Blue Jays in that department.
If you're a starting pitcher for the Blue Jays, you really want to try to limit the damage. Unfortunately, RA's given up 5 here. But with this Blue Jays offense, you know your sticks are in the game for a long time, got a lot of chances left.
Well, the bullpen is up in the first inning, and we haven't seen that in quite a while from the Blue Jays. That's Bo Schultz loosening up behind Dickey. Schultz pitched a 1-2-3 ninth inning. There's the ground ball up the middle. Tulowitzki knocks it down. He saves a run for the time being. Good effort by Tulowitzki, and that's the last thing you say as an infielder on a ground ball. Keep it on the infield with 2 outs. He did just that.
Well, we've seen Troy Tulowitzki dazzle at shortstop already in a Blue Jays uniform. And I tell you what, when you start watching a guy every day, you really start seeing. Look at the effort by Tulowitzki. Does not come up with the baseball, but he does exactly that. You want to keep the ball in the infield, and not only diving and knocking it down, but getting up quickly and anticipating that runner may be rounding third, heading to home. Just what a heads-up baseball player.
Yeah, it was a great play. It saved the run for the time being as he knocked it down and then got to his feet quickly to throw toward home. First and third, 2 outs. Back to the top of the order. Cole Calhoun. There's a drive to right, and this is trouble if it's fair. It's gone, but it's a foul ball. Boy, they are on everything.
We have not seen R.A. Dickey's knuckleball dance around today. We did not see it as much in Philadelphia in his last start, like we have the last couple of months. And that's something that I'm sure R.A. is going to be attacking in his next side session after this start. But right now he's got a lot more to take care of at hand here. First of all, trying to get out of this inning.
This is popped up. Tolle will give it a look, but it's over the street. Dickey in his last start Tuesday in Philadelphia went 4 innings plus 3 batters. He gave up 5 earned runs in that start on 9 hits. And the Phillies, much like the Angels, were really aggressive early in the bat. They went up there hacking into that knuckleball. Good job by Tolle. Put that ball right there at home. Nobody can advance. In New York, the Indians and Yankees are tied 3-3. Yankees got some bad news in that game. CC Sabathia walked off the mound with a bad knee. For a fly ball to center. Pilar trying to get an angle on it and get it out of that sun, and the inning is over. But the Angels send 10 men to the plate in the first. They score 5 runs on 6 hits off R.A. Dickey. Blue Jays got some work to do to dig out of this early hole.
Will get a third opinion on that shoulder. He'll join the team in Arlington, Texas, and see a shoulder specialist. Now, this doctor saw him once before. He is making very slow progress, but at this point, Alex feels that the best thing for him may be to just rest it for the rest of this season, take the full off season, and he'll be back to 100% by spring training. It's very disappointing. He was having a great year, but the biggest concern, guys, is the fact that the re-injuries he's had to this shoulder have come from swinging the bat as opposed to being hit by a ball like he was the first time.
That's really unfortunate that he hasn't been able to get healthy and return to play, because he was having a terrific rookie season. Well, Garrett Richards now has a comfortable lead as he starts the second inning. It'll be 6, 7, and 8 for the Blue Jays. Kevin Pilar is starting things off. What a first inning. 6 runs in the first inning on 8 hits. Down ball up the middle. Make it 9 hits. A leadoff single for Pilar here in the second. Garrett Richards was one of the premier pitchers last season. And then on August 20th at Fenway Park, he suffered this injury.
Just a devastating injury, and you can just see him catch his leg, and he just buckled and broke right down, and he grabbed that left knee immediately. It was a patellar tendon injury. Just the rest of the season, first 11 games of this year on the disabled list, recovering from that injury.
At the time of that injury, he was second in the American League with a 201 opponent's batting average. He was really throwing the ball well. And he had just gotten off to a great start, and then he was knocked out for the rest of the season, of course. The reason that's significant is it's a knee injury, not exactly the same as Marcus Stroman. But the encouraging thing is that you can see Garrett Richards back in the big leagues after that August injury. So that should give everyone concerning Stroman optimism. How about Ben Revere? He's going to have to go kicking and screaming leaving Anaheim.
He's going to want to stay.
What a series he has put together. On Friday night, he had his 14th career 4-hit game. And then last night, he gets 2 more hits and scores 3 runs. And he knows his job right now, get on base. Blue Jays need base runners. Josh Tolley is on deck. There's a strike. It's 3-1.
And that's the thing as a starting pitcher, too. We talked about that as a Blue Jay starter. If you can just keep your team in the ballgame, you start seeing things unravel in that first inning. If you can keep that to 2 or 3 or even a 4th run, gets up to 5. Over 5, it becomes very difficult. So Dickey was unable to stop that bleeding, allowing 5 to the Angels.
The Angels in the first 2 games looked very listless. They just didn't have much life. They committed a total of 4 errors in those first 2 games. They were kicking it around. They weren't making plays. They were letting pop-ups fall. And then Houston Street, he might have sparked this ball club with his tirade last night after the top half of the ninth. Stay hot, Ben Revere. He rips a single right back up the middle. Back-to-back singles here.
Catcher, number 22, Josh Tolley.
Garrett Richards has got a high-powered arm. You see the cutter at 48% and the fastball at 14%. He throws a lot of fastballs. He'll just mix in an occasional curveball. The slider is really his secondary pitch, but he'll throw a 4-seam fastball that just cuts. It's almost got that mini Mariano Rivera cut to it. He doesn't try to do it. It's just the way it comes out of his hand. He will also throw the 2-seamer. He's a guy that gets a lot of ground balls, and he's really felt at home here in Angel Stadium.
He's just 27 years old. He was a first-round pick in 2009. This is Josh Tolley. He takes the first pitch strike. Tolley came to Anaheim last night, joined the ball club, was activated this morning, and Matt Haig was sent back to AAA Buffalo. Last time Tolley played in the big leagues was June 2nd in Washington, as Joe mentioned. That was game 2, that doubleheader. He went 2 for 4 in that game. He's actually got a pretty good hit streak going. He's 5 for his last 8. Two and 1. Ryan Goins, the second baseman, is in the 9th spot this afternoon. Joe, you get a feeling this might be a horse race today.
It might be one of those long days, and you hope it's not one of those days where the last team to hit wins.
Totally fouls it back. It's now 2-2. The Blue Jays have scored 25 runs in this series. The Angels broke out with 5 runs. Cleveland has taken the lead in New York over the Yankees 4-3. They're in the 8th. Well, he strikes out, first out of the inning. Second strikeout for Garrett Richards.
That's what Richards is going to have to do, is utilize that secondary pitch. It's a very good, sharp, tight slider, late breaking. You see the ball entering the hitting zone. It looks like a strike. Totally commits to the swing, and then it just dives in the dirt. Nice block by Carlos Perez, keeping the runners at bay.
Ryan Goins came in defensively last night, got an at bat late in the ball game, and he got a hit in the ninth inning. Sharp single through the middle into center. Goins facing Richards for the first time.
Everything is pretty hard from Richards. You see the fastball in that 95 to 97 range. Even the breaking ball, that slider is going to be around 87. He throws that occasional curveball, not many of them. That one will be slow around 78, but it's almost thought that Garrett Richards may need to incorporate a changeup or a third pitch as a starter, but he's been pretty good with the two weapons.
I think when you talk about Richards, you could use David Price as an example. Price could get by with a fastball and a cutter, but he's always trying to get better, and he introduced the changeup into the mix, and that's taken him to another level. Price is always striving to get better. You know, you hate to see that get by attitude, but that slips into players' approaches. Well, I'm getting by. That get by attitude will get you a mediocre career.
And Garrett Richards at 27 years old, his fifth year in the league, and this might be around the time this year or next year where he does think about that and think about making that next jump like a David Price did.
2-1 to Goins. Now it's 3-1. Tulowitzki on deck. Goins has done a great job of gaining more plate discipline. This season, he has really seen his walk totals jump. Over his last 13 games, he's walked 12 times, so he's getting on base more frequently.
I would say that's the single most biggest difference I've seen in Ryan Goins this year compared to last.
You know what I think it is? He knows he's going to get playing time, so he doesn't have to think about getting a big hit every time he's at the plate.
So tough when you're playing once a week. You want to get out there and make an impression, make sure you get your knock or a couple for the day, so you get a little over anxious as a hitter. Start expanding that strike zone.
3-1 pitch to Goins. Cut on and missed. Ball popped right out of the glove of Perez. That speaks to the movement you were talking about, Joe.
Well, the ball cuts sometimes, and then he'll also throw the two-seamer, and that's very difficult as a catcher to handle that, especially with the high velocity. He's been up around 96, 97 with a lot of these fastballs, and when you're doing that, they're going in different directions. The sinker's going arm side as a catcher. That's to your handcuff, your glove side, and the cutter coming into lefties and away to the righties, and sometimes more movement than others. You really have to focus with your eyes, taking your eyes to the baseball, catching it.
Goins stays alive. Certainly a lot of baseball to be played here this afternoon. Blue Jays have won the first two games of this series, and they don't have any thoughts of laying down. Blue Jays are 68 and 55, 13 games over 500. Ball four. Another good take by Goins. Pass the baton to Tulowitzki.
That's a great plate appearance again by Ryan Goins. We talked about it throughout the course of that at-bat. Then he takes that pitch just off the inside corner, and you talk about turning that lineup over. Brooke Jacoby talked about that way back in spring training, about the bottom of this Blue Jays order, doing their jobs, having good at-bats, turning that lineup over. That's exactly what they've done right here.
Mike Butcher out to talk to Garrett Richards, and certainly has to be a reminder. Garrett, you got to pitch ahead. I don't care how good these guys are. You got to pitch ahead. Put them in a swing mode. If you continue to fall behind, they're going to start really keyhole on you and do some major damage.
And these Blue Jays hitters are coming to the plate with so much confidence right now. When you get the offense rolling the way it is right now, a 5-1 deficit is nothing in that Blue Jays dugout right now. They're feeling just fine about themselves. Now it's up to R.A. Dickey and the rest of the bullpen to keep this game in check, allowing this opportunity for the offense to come back.
Breaking ball downstairs again. Richards falls behind. This is the most well-rounded Blue Jays team I have seen since 94. 93, 94, and even that strike shortened season 94. They had a good team. But this team, they can hit, they can pitch, they can field. Tulowitzki's timing is just off a tad.
You can tell that too, and that's just where Troy hasn't been able to click just yet in the Blue Jays uniform. And remember, when he came over in that trade, he was struggling at the plate as well. So it's been a while for Troy, but once he kicks it in, those career numbers don't lie. This guy can hit.
For all those folks out there that want Troy Tulowitzki dropped in the order, this guy is the 14th highest batting average among active players in the big leagues. He's got a .297 career average. Pulled to third. Coward boots it. Pillar's in to score. Revere's going to score right behind him. And once again, the defense of the Angels has reared its ugly head. It's an error on Coward, his first error, and that was a tailor-made double play ball.
Well, the Blue Jays caught a bit of a break here. We've been talking about Caleb Coward in this series, how outstanding he has been with the glove work at third base. Tulowitzki hit this ball hard, and it looked like it just ate him up, playing it off to his left. A little bit of a short hop. It gets by him, but that's a ball that you have to block. That cannot get by you and into the outfield. Even if you block it, 1 run scores, but you keep everybody in check.
Josh Donaldson has already doubled this afternoon. Ground ball. Ibar. Second for 1. Back to first. There's a double play. But the Blue Jays take advantage of the error by Caleb Coward at third. And they made it a 5-3 ball game. They're right back in the hunt.
Tomorrow, Olivier Giroux and the Gunners host their rivals from Liverpool. You can see all the action 2:30 Eastern right here on Sportsnet as Arsenal takes on Liverpool. Bye.
Thank you very much, Barry, as we head to the bottom of the second. Boy, if this game continues at this pace, it's going to be 25-24. This is Mike Trout. Chris Guccione went over to the Angels dugout, and he and Socha had a little bit of a discussion, and it was kind of animated, and I believe it has to do with the strike zone. And There were some borderline pitches that Scioscia may have wanted. But I think Guccione went over to initiate the conversation, and he may have heard some barking from that Angel dugout.
I think a lot of it came on that 3-2 pitch to Ryan Goins when he walked. Guccione was hearing it from that Angels dugout, and sometimes an umpire will just go over there and say, look, guys, end it right now. If you're going to argue balls and strikes, this conversation's not going to last very long. Of course, Scioscia was probably doing a little negotiating himself.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that you shouldn't be allowed to say anything about the strike zone. It's a good part of the game, Joe.
Isn't that kind of silly if you argue balls and strikes? What's the difference?
Yeah. There's another hit for Trout. Goins made a jump for it, but it was out of his reach. Mike Trout with a leadoff single. He's 2 for 2. Let's check in with Brad Fay. The Indians have some good-looking young players. Lindor is 3 for 5 at shortstop for the Indians. Ursula is also the young third baseman that's come up and taken over at third base for Lindor. It's his 7th home run of the season. Interesting, that home run came off Dellin Betances. In a 3-3 game, the Indians now have the lead. Mike Trout, of course, he can run. He's 10 for 15 in steal attempts this season. I would imagine the Angels feel like they're going to have to continue to add to their lead here. Pujols takes a strike. He didn't think so. And here's Scioscia again in that dugout looking out at the home plate umpire. Ground ball to third. Donaldson quickly to second. Goins with a quick turn. And that leadoff single erased immediately. Brian Goins took ball 4. Mike Scioscia's asking, where was it? Was it in? It looked like it was not down. What was wrong with it? Why was it ball 4? And that led to Iannetta coming over in between innings and having a talk with the manager.
And you can even see that discussion between Albert Pujols and Guccione. He almost shook his hand saying, well, it's a knuckleball. It's kind of hard to see, but it looked like it did catch the bottom of the zone against Pujols.
You know, we have talked about this in the past with R.A. Dickey. Umpires are like starting pitchers. They get about 33, 34 plate jobs a season. And they might get a knuckleballer once a year, maybe. We talked to the veteran Mike Winters the last time Dickey pitched. He said, I haven't seen a knuckleballer in 5 years.
Tough.
And, you know, we complain about how difficult it is for people to catch it. Well, it's tough to hit, and it's also very tough to call balls and strikes with.
A lot of movement.
Weak grounder to third. Donaldson surrounds it and throws out Murphy. R.A. Dickey with a good bounce back inning. Just what the Blue Jays needed. He throws up a 0.
Fantasy camp time is running out. We have just 3 spots left. It goes November 15th through the 20th in Dunedin, Florida. You will join Roberto Alomar, George Bell, Devon White, and many more for what will be the ultimate Major League experience. Your package includes airfare, hotel, meals, uniform, and 4 days of baseball. Go to bluejays.com/fantasycamp for more details. Nothing like fantasy camp, Buck, for those baseball wannabes like myself.
Well, I tell you what, Barry, I'm glad they brought it back. And we used to have great turnouts at fantasy camps. I'm still great friends with a lot of those campers that I was involved with 15, 20 years ago. And it's a great opportunity, especially with all the heightened interest in the Blue Jays with their great summer going on. It'll be Bautista, Encarnacion, and smoke for the Blue Jays here in the 3rd. And we are in the 3rd. It's 5-3 already. Garrett Richards victimized by some shaky defense in the 2nd. He got a ground ball. It looked like a tailor-made double play ball, but it got past Caleb Cowart for his first error. Tulowitzki credited with an RBI on the play. But it should have been a double play. Richards would come back and get a ground ball to the shortstop. Ibar started the inning-ending 6-4-3 double play off the bat of Donaldson. Foul chip. That's that cutter right there. A little late movement.
Can't see how much that ball is moving, and that's at 95 miles per hour. It's just a 4-seam fastball that Richards throws. He's not trying to do anything to it. He's just got some natural cut to it. What a great asset to have out of a powerful right arm.
Bautista hits it past the 3rd baseman all the way into the corner. Bautista's headed for 2nd. Well, boy, the Blue Jays did a great job last night of getting their leadoff men on base, and they've done it again today. Bautista with a leadoff double. Let's check in with Brad Fay.
Designated hitter, number 10, Edwin Encarnacion.
Blue Jays will be down in Texas on Tuesday night. They'll have a off day in Texas Monday. You can see the wild card race. Blue Jays have a 4-game cushion over the Rangers, who have leapfrogged over the top of the Angels. Encarnacion pops it up down the right side. Long run for Cron. And that ball's a row into the seats out of the play.
The red-hot Texas Rangers, boy, are they ever jumping in a hurry.
They made some nice pickups as they have fortified their team somewhat. Mike Napoli has come over from the Red Sox. He returns to the Rangers, and Napoli had 2 hits today, including his 15th home run of the season. Mitch Moreland's had a great season. The first baseman hitting .287. And Moreland has driven in 66 runs. Cole Hamels the winner in that game, and he was part of the revamped Rangers as he was picked up in that trade from Philadelphia.
And that's something you talk about Mike Napoli, and we saw him just struggling mightily in a Red Sox uniform. He may be rejuvenated going back to his old team in a pennant race.
Well, things weren't going well for them in Boston, and he had some great memories of his time in Texas. Edwin Encarnacion had a sac fly in the 1st inning. Ground ball, base hit into center. Bautista's getting the wave home. Mike Trout comes up throwing, and the throw is late. Encarnacion with a 19-game hit streak. His 2nd RBI of the afternoon, and you just sense that the Blue Jays feel no deficit is too big. And now the trainer's going to come out for the Angels. And Garrett Richards is looking at his pitching hand as Encarnacion picks up the RBI single. And if things haven't gone bad enough for the Angels, Richards may have a blister on his pitching hand.
Well, he left that pitch up in the zone again. It was at 95 miles per hour, but it was that cutter. And Edwin does a nice job at getting on top of this baseball. Not easy to do. On a ball at 95 miles per hour, you want to try to keep your hands on top of the baseball. He does that and hits it very hard up the middle. Nice job by Bautista coming around third. That hustle beating the throw from Mike Trout.
So the trainer went out to check on Richards, and at least for the time being, he says he's okay. Checking with his middle infielders, see who has coverage at second base. Encarnacion and Bautista. Bautista with a double, Encarnacion with the RBI single. And now it's a 5-4 ball game. Smoke with a mighty cut. They're in the ninth in New York. It's 4-3 Cleveland. Justin Wilson into the game for the Yankees. Breaking ball, Smoke fouls it off. The Angels playing a dramatic shift against Smoke. There's only one defender on the left side of the infield. They expect him to pull the ball on the ground. This makes a double play a little bit of a challenge for those middle infielders. Smoke strikes out. The ball gets away from Perez. And that allows Encarnacion to advance. And we talked about the wild pitches that Richards throws, and that takes him out of a double play situation.
Well, the harder secondary pitches are the toughest to block, but this is a slider again from Richards. But Perez gets in position, but he just does not quite square up the baseball. And that's one thing as a catcher. When you call that pitch, you have to anticipate. That's the biggest thing, is anticipating it's going to be in the dirt. Get your body to that position. You have to beat the baseball to that spot so that it's hitting a body that's still, and you can feel that ball right off your chest protector, and it won't get too far away from you. A little late getting to the spot.
Kevin Pillar takes a strike. Kevin had a single leading off the second, came around to score. Ground ball up the middle, off the glove of Ibar. Encarnacion had to hold his ground. Pillar is 2 for 2. Blue Jays threatening first and third, one out. They've already scored a run here in the third.
Nice piece of hitting by Kevin. Now this is a ball, when it's hit to your right like this, Edwin has to know exactly where that shortstop is. If you feel that he's right behind you and that ball's hit at him, you have to stay. So he really did the right thing. Now, could he have gone? Absolutely, because Ibar was in the hole a little bit. If he knew where he was exactly, he could have taken off, knowing that Ibar's only chance was to maybe make a diving play. In that event, there's no way he could have come up going to third base. Tough read.
This is Ben Revere, who's singled this afternoon. 7 hits in the series for Revere. Isn't it funny, Joe? I don't know how you reacted, but when we saw Revere in his first several at-bats here, we went, man, there's a lot of movement in that swing. I don't know if he can really hit like that. Well, what did we know? Up to 284 now in 20 games with the Blue Jays. Just goes to show you there's a bunch of different ways to skin a cat.
Well, I think the bottom line is, for any hitter, it's all about timing, and it's all about getting to that launch position with your front foot down. How you get there is different among all hitters. He's got a lot going on to get there, so timing is very important to Ben. And we just thought, you know what, here's a player coming to a new team. There's a lot going on, not even on the field, but off the field. Maybe just wasn't feeling it at the plate.
Inside, another good take from Revere.
You know, a lot of people don't think about that. When a player gets traded, you're talking about moving, changing cities, going to a new place, finding a place to live, moving your family, all those extraneous things that you don't even think about. That can affect how you go day to day on a baseball field, too. And if you're just not feeling it as a hitter, I'm sure a lot of that played a part for Revere.
There's a breaking ball strike. Well, you're right, and more often than not, players have to leave, and they leave it to their wives who take care of all those details, and that can create more stress. 2-2, Encarnacion at first base. At third. Pilar's at first. Pulled through the right side. Another base hit for Pilar, and Encarnacion comes in to score, and the Blue Jays have tied it. 8 hits now for Ben Revere in this series.
Well, Ben Revere is loving Southern California. This is a breaking ball. It was on the outer part of the plate. He comes around that baseball a bit. It looked like when he hit it, he was going into right field, but he got it off the end of his bat just a bit. Grant Green did a nice job diving and getting to that ball, but with the speed of Revere, got away from Green just enough. It's an infield hit and an RBI to tie this ball game.
5-5. Josh Tolley goes after the first pitch. Pilar and Revere, 6 and 7 in the order, or 4 for 4. Strike 2 to Tolley. Inside. This can be as deflating as the 15-3 loss last night. The Angels score 5 runs in the bottom of the first, only to see it evaporate quickly here in the third. Tolley strikes out. 4 strikeouts for Richards.
Save during Canada's Color Expert Sale. Only at Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
2 outs now. Ryan Goins walked in the second inning. It was a big walk as he took a close pitch, and that set the table for Troy Tulowitzki with the bases loaded.
Well, you're so right about how deflating that can be for the Angels. 2 very lethargic days in these first couple of games. They could jump out to a 5-0 lead, and now they're thinking, what else can go wrong? And I got to believe if I'm John Gibbons or Pete Walker in that Blue Jays dugout, you're going to get what you can out of R.A. Dickey here and then hand it over to that vaunted Blue Jays bullpen. They'll be glad to have a bullpen game against the Angels.
Another good breaking ball from Richards. It's a ball and a strike to the Blue Jays second baseman. Blue Jays have their best bullpen that they've had all season long. No question about that. And everybody's fresh. Ball gets away, and Perez again having trouble with the movement.
And what's so difficult again about catching a Garrett Richards is up around 95 miles per hour, but you see him set up a way to go, and so now he has to go back across his body, and that ball's cutting actually in on the other side of the plate. Sometimes the ball cuts more than others, so as a catcher, it's a different pitch every time you're catching it. That one you see it just went off the end of his glove. Very difficult to handle.
Up the middle, Ibar boots it. Pilar's going to score as the Angels defense kicks it around again. And the Blue Jays have taken the lead. Another air charge to Ibar, his 11th. It's the second air charge to the Angels this afternoon. And the Blue Jays have erased that 4-run deficit.
A good piece of hitting by Ryan Goins, staying up the middle, and it looked like Ibar was getting to this ball. He didn't have to dive. He bent down, If he gloves this ball, it's an easy third out and end of the inning, but it goes right off his glove, and Mike Scioscia is just spinning his wheels right now.
Well, there's two balls that should have ended the innings. That double play ball in the second, and this ball to Ibar. And they both led to Blue Jay runs. 11th there of the season for the Angels shortstop. Ibar won a Gold Glove in 2011. Troy Tulowitzki. Oh, and 2. Tulowitzki picked up an RBI on that ground ball in the second. Breaking ball in the dirt. Another thing that has happened because of the errors, Garrett Richards has now thrown 71 pitches. Those errors in the second and here in the third have led to extra pitches.
Spike that pitch count, and that's when your starting pitcher, you start finding yourself around 100 pitches in the 4th, 5th inning. Be a tough day for the Angels bullpen again.
Outside.
See Perez really make sure of that pitch. This is one of the days as a catcher. It's just not an easy walk in the park. There's some guys that you enjoy catching. It's like a day off back there. Not today for Carlos Perez. It's just a high maintenance day behind the plate when you have a pitcher that's a lot of velocity and a lot of movement.
Tulowitzki fouls it straight back to the screen. First 2 games of this series, the starters for the Angels have combined to pitch 7 innings. So they've had to use the bullpen. They've used 9 relief pitchers in the first 2 games.
Will be up to R.A. Dickey to ride this out or hand it off to that bullpen.
Tulowitzki gets a piece of that breaking ball and stays alive. Well, it took Ben Revere a while to get his bat going, and when you think about Tulowitzki and the impact he's had since he's come over, the Blue Jays are 17-3 when he starts at shortstop, so I wouldn't be too worried about what's going on with him at the plate, but he wants to contribute just like everybody else. Look out. That breaking ball, and you can see now Richards seems to have been deflated, like he's throwing pitches and hoping there's strikes, while in New York has lost 4-3 to Cleveland. Pulled to third. Coward has it. Cross the diamond in time, and the inning is over. But the Blue Jays scored 3 runs in the third. Ben Revere's had a terrific series. 2 more hits this afternoon. He picks up an RBI as the Blue Jays have taken a 6-5 lead.
out into first place in the American League East, and those same Yankees are in action tomorrow night. You can see the game on Sportsnet. The Astros make a visit to Yankee Stadium. You can watch that game on Sportsnet, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. The Yankees also losing CC Sabathia today to a knee injury.
Yeah, Sabathia walked off the mound in his start today against the Indians. Scott Feldman will start for Houston tomorrow. Nathan Eovaldi, a native of Houston, will pitch for the Yankees. So that'll be an important game as far as the Blue Jays go. The Jays and the Yankees in a flat-footed tie. And you can see identical records. The Blue Jays will have played one more game at the end of this game this afternoon and could move into sole possession of first. R.A. Dickey retired side in order in the second. Got a leadoff single by Chop, but then the double play off the bat of Pujols and a ground ball out. Ibar, Cron, and Perez here in the third, and we are just in the third. These games are really character testers if you're the Angels. You get out to a 5-1 lead and see it evaporate and fall behind in the third. Goins moves to his right a couple of steps and throws out Ibar. But these are the games where you really have to dig down deep. Let's check in with Brad Fay. Cody Allen with his 26th save of the season. Struck out 3 in an inning and a third. So he had a 4-out save for Cleveland. Dylan Betances, and he's starting to look like he might be wearing down a bit. He loses that game as he gave up the home run. C.J. Cron drives the ball to the alley in right center, and Pilar gets over, cuts it off, but Cron has his second hit of the afternoon. We talked about his slow bat matches up very well with that pitch of R.A. Dickey.
And what he's doing is really allowing the ball to travel and get deep. We saw it back in the first inning. He did it again here, and you're right on. It's a good matchup for a bigger guy like that with a bit of a longer swing.
Carlos Perez picked up a sacrifice fly. He drove a ball to right field. And cashed in a run. Goes after the first pitch and hits it deep to center. Pilar sets up. Cron fakes a break, but he'll hold that second. Already in scoring position. 2 down now. Caleb Cowart, the third baseman, doubled in the alley in right center his first time out. Part of that 5-run, 6-hit first inning.
Interesting to know what goes on between innings in that Blue Jays dugout, because I'm sure there were some conversations between Pete Walker, the pitching coach, and R.A. A lot of times the pitching coach can pick up things from the side that you might not necessarily know you're doing in your delivery in terms of your mechanics on the mound. Pete can identify some of that. They'll even go down and watch some video in between innings, try to pick things up. This is amazing with the technology now, what these players can do.
Well, and the big adjustment they made after that June 2nd start was they got Dickey back in alignment. Ground ball to Tulowitzki. That'll end the inning. The double by Cron is left on base. We'll move to the fourth. Blue Jays have a 6-5 lead for R.A. Dickey.
Official team shop for your Toronto Blue Jays, bringing together the largest selection of Blue Jays products anywhere. Visit us online at jshop.ca. Buck?
Thank you very much, Barry. And Josh Donaldson will lead things off for the Blue Jays. Last night he had a career-high 6 RBIs that pushed him to 100 for the season. And it's significant because he becomes the 5th player playing for a team in his first season to drive in 100. And that name at the top is pretty impressive, Joe.
How about being on a list with Babe Ruth at the top? Is that any good?
Babe Ruth did it in 1920, his first year with the Yankees. Dave Kingman in 84, his first year with Oakland. Miguel Tejada went from Oakland to Baltimore and drove in 100 his first year with the Orioles. And Josh Hamilton went from Cincinnati to Texas and drove in 100 for the Rangers in his first full season in Texas. So Donaldson has put himself in a pretty impressive list of great sluggers.
Well, if you're a Blue Jays fan, you had to see this coming. I think everyone in Blue Jays land was shocked at the trade when it was announced in the offseason. But you think of the numbers that he put up in Oakland at O.Co Coliseum for half your games, a place where the ball does not travel real well, and put him now into Toronto where you're playing half your games at Rogers Center. Now he's starting to do it on the road as well.
He went around on that breaking ball. Donaldson, just like Ben Revere, has 7 hits in this series. (6-5) Blue Jays, and at one point they trailed 5-1. Bouncing ball toward third. Coward was deep at third, throws offline, but Cron came off the bag to tag Donaldson. 1 out. Let's check in with Brad Fader.
Number 19, Jose Bautista.
Zach Britton gave up the tying run as he was charged with a run on 3 hits in that 9th inning. Kevin Gausman, a good start. 7 innings, 2 runs on 3 hits and 8 strikeouts. Jose Bautista gives it a ride. Forget about this one on the rocks in Anaheim. Home run number 29 for Jose. He's 3 for 3.
Looks like Jose may be heating up just a bit once again. He been swinging the bat very well. Went into a little bit of a slide, but he hit a hanging slider from Garrett Richards right here. Trying to go with a different plan of attack, leading him off with his secondary pitch, but can't hang it up there to Jose.
Fastball inside.
Look where this pitch ends up to Bautista. It just hangs up there about waist high and on the inner half of the plate. That's danger, danger for Bautista. He's a pull hitter. Anything middle in, he can hit out of the ballpark.
14th home run allowed by Garrett Richards, and the Blue Jays have now homered in 14 straight road games.
See him in the dugout right there. That motion he just made with his hands. That ball is on the inner half of the plate, and he said, I just pulled my hands inside. You just react to a pitch like that. And when you have the abilities of this guy, the ball goes a long ways.
7-5 Blue Jays. You know, the Angels have to feel like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in this series. Looking back over their shoulder saying, who are these guys? Line to left field. Get up, ball. Get up and gone. Back-to-back home runs for the Blue Jays. It's the 7th time the Blue Jays have gone back-to-back this season. 24th homer of the season for Double E.
Well, Edwin's a pull hitter. When he gets a baseball on the inner half of the plate, you are just feeding his barrel, and he gets the bat head out in a hurry. Crushing this ball on a line. Just got over that short wall. Marked 347 down the line. It got out of here in a hurry.
Smoke goes after the first pitch and rolls it toward Ibar. 2 down.
See this pitch again, middle in. These Angels pitchers for this entire series have been missing in the middle part of the plate. They're not staying away from the middle. They're not catching the edges like you need to against good hitters in this Blue Jays lineup. 1 through 9 this weekend is just having a field day.
The trident of Donaldson, Bautista, and Encarnacion have done some damage again tonight. This afternoon, they have been swinging potent bats once again. Between them, they have 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 2 singles. They've scored 5 runs and driven in 4. I just don't know how you attack these 3 hitters.
One thing we've seen on occasion, and they've been very rare occasions from these Angels pitchers this series, is we've seen them try to come inside once in a while, and a lot of times they've missed their spots. Now, we've seen a couple brush back Bautista. We saw it Friday night, but those are just single pitches. It needs to be done more often against these kinds of hitters.
And you can see Richards now is really struggling to throw quality pitches. He bounced that one well in front of home plate. Kevin Pillar is 2 for 2. He scored twice this afternoon. Hits it to third. Bobbled by Cowart. Recovers in time to throw Pillar out. That'll end the inning, but the Blue Jays put on some more power displays. Jose Bautista first with 1 out. He gets a hanging breaking ball. Hammers it over the wall into the rocks in left center, number 29. And then right behind him, Double E goes deep. 24th of the year, the 7th time the Blue Jays have gone back-to-back this season.
Second, it will mark the 25-year anniversary of Dave Stieb's no-hitter, the only one in Blue Jays franchise history. Tune in Sunday, August 30th at noon Eastern for Dave Stieb Almost Perfect. The special will look at that game's special moments as shared by some of the participants, including Dave Stieb himself. Buck?
Should be a good watch, and Dave Stieb, of course, one of the best pitchers the Blue Jays have ever had. Bautista using that glove to shade his eyes from the sun makes the catch on Grant Green. That's the first out of the bottom of the 4th. John, this Blue Jays team right now seem to have the confidence that they can beat anybody anywhere. And you can see Bautista using that glove very effectively. But they fell behind early 5-1, and you might think, okay, well, you know, what's 2 out of 3 is not bad in Anaheim. They don't want anything to do with 2 out of 3 right now.
No, we said that attitude in that Blue Jays first base dugout was not that at all. They always feel like they're in a ball game, especially when it's still early. They gave up the 5 in that first inning to be trailing 5-1. They know there's an awful lot of baseball left. They know that this Angels team has been reeling. Blue Jays lineup has been on fire, and now it's just going to be a battle of attrition here amongst pitching staffs.
Well, Donaldson's had the big series. He has 9 RBIs in the series, had 6 last night and today. Bautista and Encarnacion are perfect, 5 for 5. Cole Calhoun pops it up into shallow left. Long run for Revere, and nobody's going to get it. Tulowitzki went out. Revere was coming in, and it drops between them. Calhoun gets his first hit of the afternoon. They'll just hit that one in no man's land.
Well, Ben Revere playing rather deep, too, and Tulowitzki going out. Looked like he may have had a beat on it, but you know he heard Ben Revere calling that baseball, so he had to peel away. Last thing you want is a collision right there, but that's just one of those tweeners. Very difficult for anybody to get to the baseball. They both had a long ways to go.
Mike Trout is 2 for 2. He's tripled in single off of Dickey. He throws a strike. Trout, coming into this game, had just 9 hits in his last 14 games. He was 9 for 47. Waves at that pitch away, 1-2.
Talk so often about how Trout lets that ball travel, let it get deep. He just waited way too long, very tardy with that swing. Ball was almost by him.
Starting to heat up. He slashes that base hit to right. He's 3 for 3. He's had 4 good at-bats in the last 4 plate appearances.
Most good hitters, and the first one that comes to mind for me is Miguel Cabrera. These great hitters have the ability to let that ball travel. Watch how deep Trout catches this baseball. He allows it to get deep in his stance, and therefore you can see the ball a little bit longer. Now, things are a little different with the knuckleballer on the mound, but then it's even more pronounced to really wait even longer. These guys are so good at letting the ball get that. They do not get out front and caught out front, rolling balls over.
Albert Pujols had a sacrifice fly, and he's grounded into a double play. Pujols trying to take a page out of Trout's book, shooting it to right. Trout and Pujols coming into this game were the most potent home run tandems in all of baseball. And 66 home runs between them. Bautista has homered this afternoon. That gives Donaldson and Bautista 63 home runs. Ground ball should be 2. Bowen shovels to Tulowitzki, who comes across the bag, and Dickey gets out of it. Dickey gets the double play to end the inning. We'll head to the 5th. It's 8-5 Blue Jays. Now time for a Blue Jays Central Update. Here's Brad Fay and Greg Zorn.
Presented by the 2015 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car for 17 years in a row and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
So Honda Center beyond the rocks in center field in Haka Arena, not far away, just across the street. Boy, what a comeback for the Blue Jays. They trailed 5-1 after one, and now they lead it 8-5. Ben Revere hits it sharply, but this time it's right to Grant Green at second. Revere's retired for the first time this afternoon.
Pitcher number 22, Josh Tolley.
Josh Tolley will step up. He's struck out twice so far this afternoon. He just came back from AAA Buffalo. There was some thought of calling up Tolley earlier, about 3 weeks ago, but he had a blister that got infected and he was on the disabled list in the minors. Of course, he and Dickey were teammates in New York with the Mets. There's a high fly ball. Calhoun over toward the alley in right center makes the catch. 2 up, 2 down here in the 5th.
Number 17, Ryan Goins.
And Richards has now thrown 95 pitches as he works with 2 outs in the 5th. And there's no action in the Angels bullpen. He's going to go a while, looks like. The Angels have an off day tomorrow before they start out on a 9-game road trip. The Angels will go to Detroit for 3, Cleveland for 3, and then back to the West Coast and take on Oakland before they come home. A 9-game road trip. Then they'll have the Texas Rangers and the Dodgers here. And then after an off day on September 10th, the Houston Astros will be here. Battle of the AL West teams. Goins grounds out to end the inning. 3 up, 3 down for Richards here in the top of the 5th. David Murphy will lead things off for the Angels when we come back. R.A. Dickey in line for the win.
Regular season games live or on demand in true HD. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking, and much more. It also includes a free At That 15 subscription. Watch baseball at home, at the office, or on the go. Season-long subscription packages are available. Visit BlueJays.com for more details. Speaking of highlights, Buck, how they put together a Blue Jays in 30 on Sportsnet when they're scoring runs like this. Kudos to the producers who have to do that.
You got to do a lot of cutting, that's for sure. There's a swing and a drive and another swing and a drive. Back-to-back home runs here for the 7th time for the Blue Jays this season. Bautista and Encarnacion. They did the trick in the 4th. Murphy Drills this one to the alley, and this one's going to get down and go up against the wall. Pilar plays it off the wall. David Murphy slides in safely ahead of the throw. A leadoff double for Murphy here in the fifth, his 16th double of the season.
Another pitch just stayed really middle, about waist high. Good hit right there, and you see again not a lot of movement.
Looks like John Gibbons has asked the umpires to review this, and Jeff Nelson, the crew chief, was at second base. They kept the tag on Murphy when he slid into second base and popped up. Maybe that was the point of it. Watch this slide. Goins takes the ball, and watch Murphy.
Whoa.
He lost contact, and Tulowitzki has the ball in the glove right on him. So watch him as he goes in the air. Tulowitzki's always thinking he's clearly off the base. Now, how in the world would an umpire see that at full speed? But Tulowitzki, he doesn't miss a beat.
He doesn't. You could see him holding that glove up at the end. But how about the hustle by Kevin Pillar? This is a ball off the wall in right center field. A lot of outfielders would have just casually played this off the wall, gotten it back into the infield. He plays it quickly, fires a strike into second base. And I believe there's enough evidence here to overturn this call.
I agree with you. And watch the spikes. They clearly come off second base. He's airborne when Tulowitzki had the glove on him.
Look at the eyes of Tulowitzki right now, looking right down there. And then right after that, he held his glove right out to say, hey, we've got something here. Watch Tulowitzki after he applies the tag here.
Glove is on his hip right there, and he loses contact with the second base back. Murphy should be out. This is going to be interesting. I've never seen this before. They have the decision from New York, and they call him out. Oh, what a good play by Tulowitzki. So Murphy will be called out for leaving the bag.
Mike Scioscia's ready to go home.
Tulowitzki is a heads-up ball player, I'm telling you. And he just rode that tag and stayed right on it. How many times have you told infielders, and you've heard infielders told, stay with the tag, ride the slide, stay with him. You never know, he might lose contact with the base.
Infielders hear that a million times, but rarely do you see it. Tulo kept that tag on him the entire time.
This ball is driven to left off the bat of Ibar. And Revere makes the catch. What a turnaround. Kevin Pillar, to his credit, played it like it was a scoreless tie. He got it back in quickly, and Tulowitzki plays everything as if it were a scoreless tie. And R.A. Dickey gets the benefits of a couple of heads-up plays by Pillar, who picks up an assist, and by Tulowitzki, who was there to tag out Murphy.
You know, it is not easy to play great defense and heads-up defense when you're struggling offensively. A lot of players will take their offense out onto the field with them, not Tulo.
Bautista comes in. Wow, what a good inning for R.A. Dickey's defense, really helping him out. Looked like the Angels had a leadoff double. But Murphy is tagged out by Tulowitzki. The Angels go down in order in the fifth.
Exclusive match coverage of the Barclays Premier League, Bundesliga, Euro 2016 qualifiers, FA Cup, and more. Contact your local television service provider to subscribe today or visit sportsnet.ca/world for details. Buck?
Thank you very much, Barry. And boy, oh boy, we've seen a little bit of everything here today. And not only have the Angels kicked it around in the field, they've made some base running mistakes. This is a terrific play by Pilar. First of all, the hustle will throw back in, but watch the tag by Tulowitzki. Murphy slides in safely, but loses contact with second base. So he is tagged out. Tulowitzki had the glove on him all the time. So it is a single for Murphy, and he is out advancing as he never had full possession of second base. But you said it, Joe. How many major leaguers stick with that play here in the middle of August? You got a comfortable lead. Looks like a stand-up double all the way. Slides in, pops up, and say, okay, well, we can see the double. Not Pilar and Tulowitzki. They don't take anything for granted.
You see Kevin Pilar do that a lot, too. A lot of times he'll try to cut a ball off in the gap or he'll play it off the wall. He's always firing it back in. Well, you know what? You do that 20 times and you get one guy like that right there, it is well worth it. But you need the guy on the other end, the receiving end, to do what Tulowitzki did.
Boy, no question about that. And, you know, some people will criticize Pilar for making those throws. But like you say, you never know when it's going to be an out, and you'll make a great play because of it. If you play the game the right way, it will reward you. And Tulowitzki takes the leadoff walk here in the sixth.
You mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the same topic, is that you can't turn the switch on and off. If you're trained to play the game hard all of the time, and that's what we're seeing right here out of Pilar, we're seeing it out of Tulowitzki, but more importantly, you're seeing it out of a player like Tulowitzki, a superstar player at the major league level, going through some terrible struggles offensively right now, but he's not taking out on the field defensively.
He never takes his hitting woes to the field with him. Josh Donaldson. Big cut, fouled off. Donaldson 1 for 3. A quiet day by his standards. He doubled in his first at bat, came around to score the first run of the ball game. Taylor Gott, young right-hander, loosening up. Gott has pitched in the first 2 games of this series. He's loosening up again. One and two to Donaldson.
See if Josh doesn't try a little bit of a 2-strike approach right here. Right side of the infield wide open.
Breaking ball down and away. Garrett Richards has thrown 107 pitches, his season high 113. He's done that twice. To play it outside.
Mike Scioscia wondering from his catcher, Carlos Perez, where's that pitch? You see Perez as he walks back, has a quick word with Guccione. He says, you got that ball outside? I'm sure Guccione said, yep, it's just off. Carlos Perez will say, I got to have that pitch. It's a little conversation that'll go on behind home plate with home plate umpire.
Richards has been charged with 8 runs, 6 earned runs. The 6 earned runs ties his season high for earned runs allowed. 8 earned runs in a game. That's the most he's allowed this season. 8 runs in this ball game charged to Garrett Richards. Way outside, ball 4. Back-to-back walks here in the 6th, and Jose Bautista with 1 out in the 4th and nobody on. He got an inside breaking ball from Garrett Richards.
could see this ball just hang on the inner half, and of course it's elevated as well, and that's just not a good combination when you're facing one of the elite sluggers in Major League Baseball, and Jose Bautista, and that's usually where those baseballs end up. Just amazing when you make mistakes to these Blue Jays hitters. They don't just hit a single or a double, they can beat you out of the ballpark.
So Garrett Richards is out of this ball game. He had a 5-1 lead at one point. He looks over at the umpire and gives him his thoughts about the strike zone. Young Trevor Gott will make his third appearance of this season. Jose Bautista will be the batter when we come back to Anaheim. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership. The Blue Jays have an 8-5 lead over the Angels, trying to sweep the three-game series. New pitcher into the game is young Trevor Gott, making his third appearance in this series.
Trevor Gott working in his 31st game of the season. The hard-throwing right-hander, that ERA at 1.72. He's not allowed a run now in 25 of his 30 appearances this season. Good fastball, be up around 97 miles per hour. Curveball and changeup. A lot of ground balls. He'd be looking for one right here.
He faced Bautista on Friday night and got Bautista to fly out to right field. Jose's had a terrific start to his day. He has singled, doubled, and scored, and hit a home run. He is a triple shy of the cycle. And he hit a triple in last night's game. He hit a triple off the wall in right center in the fourth. 6 for 12 in the series. At one point on this road trip, he was 0 for 13. You don't give up on thoroughbreds.
You know, these guys have proven track records, and that's why the conversation continues to swirl around Troy Tulowitzki at the top of this Blue Jays lineup. But I'm sorry, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it, right? Troy Tulowitzki's been a staple at the top of the Blue Jays lineup since he came over here, and they've done nothing but win. Why would you change anything?
Absolutely. And he's going to get it sooner or later. Then the Blue Jays haven't lost with his stability at short.
And there's two schools of thought. A lot of people will say now that Ben Revere's heating up, get him up at the top of the lineup, but let him heat up and let him do that at the bottom of the order. It's a wonderful thing.
Ben Revere doesn't even get it talked about in the scouting report, batting down in the order. Leading right where he's at. Bautista with a 3-1 count. Pops it up. Second baseman Green backpedaling, infield fly. Bautista's retired. That's the first time he's been retired this afternoon. Now Edwin Encarnacion, he has a sac fly and has singled and homered. They went back to back in the fourth.
Well, Edwin got a fastball on the inner half. When you get into a good hitter's count, he's ahead 3-1. You see that fastball just above the knees on the inner part, and he got the barrel to it. This was a line drive that got out of here down the left field line in a hurry.
Encarnacion now with a 19-game hit streak, the longest active hit streak in the majors. It's also the third longest hit streak of the season in the American League. Nelson Cruz had a 21-game hit streak. Jason Kipnis of the Indians a 20-game hit streak, and now Encarnacion with 19 straight. Encarnacion faced Gott in last night's game and popped out to the second baseman. So he's got a little bit of information against Trevor Gott. Top of the 6th inning. Young right-hander facing Edwin Encarnacion. Three and one to Encarnacion. Right on the corner.
It's a great pitch by Gott. It's a two-seam fastball that he starts off the plate away. It comes back, just catches that outer third. As a right-handed batter, you give up on that pitch. It looks so far away from you. Good movement bringing it back. See if he goes back out there again.
Base hit through the right side. Tulowitzki's going to be stopped as Calhoun got to it quickly. 3 hits for Encarnacion.
The 2015 Honda Civic is Canada's best-selling car for 17 years in a row and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Southern California, the Blue Jays will jump on a plane after this game and head to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they'll take on the Rangers after an off day on Monday. The Rangers series begins Tuesday night. Mark Burley will open up against the lefty Derek Holland on Tuesday night. Smoke drives this ball deep to center. Trout fighting the sun. Tulowitzki tagging at third. Here's the throw toward the plate. It's offline and cut off. Smoke with the sacrifice fly picks up his 42nd RBI as Tulowitzki scores another run.
Center fielder, number 11, Kevin Pillar.
Well, Justin did not wait around. The first pitch from Gott hit it just deep enough, and they're not afraid to challenge that arm of Mike Trout out in center field. Tulo scores easily as Trout's throw is just up that third baseline.
Kevin Pillar is 2 for 3. Blue Jays now with 9 runs on 11 hits.
You're facing a hard thrower like Gott who throws a high percentage of fastballs. You know he's going to challenge you. That's why Justin Smoke says, I'm looking for that first pitch heater. He got it. Drove it to the outfield, cashed in another run for the Blue Jays.
For Smoke, that's his first sacrifice fly of the season. The Blue Jays as a team have done a terrific job. They have 2 more sacrifice flies this afternoon. They have 45 for the season. We don't waste those golden opportunities to drive in extra runs.
And a lot of that comes down to a philosophy of hitting, and in Justin Smoke's case right there, that's exactly what it is. He has that information from Brooke Jacoby regarding these relievers coming into the ball game. They know he's a hard-throwing right-hander. They know he throws a lot of fastballs. So Smoke's saying, I'm not going to wait around. I'll look for one early. Those are the little parts of this game that makes, again, this Blue Jays lineup so lethal.
That's a foul ball off of Pillar. You know, for years the Blue Jays have had pretty good offensive teams. They'd hit home runs, they'd score a lot of runs. But this year, when you look at the Blue Jays overall. They're third in sacrifice hits. They're first in sacrifice flies. They're second in walks. They've done everything that you would want from an offensive approach.
And then you look at that base hit 2 batters ago by Edwin Encarnacion. He works the count 3-2 to Gott. And what's he do? He gets a fastball out over the plate. He just shoots a base hit to right field. So it goes to show you they're just real complete hitters.
This is bounced towards second. Green waits on it. That ends the inning. The Blue Jays score another run. They've taken a 9-5 lead. They've scored 33 runs in the 30 games here in Anaheim.
Brooklyn, New York becomes the battleground. Brock Lesnar takes on The Undertaker tonight, live on the WWE Network. Subscribe at WWE.com/Canada. And as Randy the Macho Man Savage would say, don't you miss it? Yeah. Like that?
Well, yeah, probably needs a little work, Barry, but good try.
Sounded so mean.
But you see, Barry, we know what you look like, and that's a hard one to sell. Carlos Perez, the catcher, takes the first pitch strike. R.A. Dickey starts the bottom of the 6th. Looked like it was going to be a short afternoon for Dickey. He gave up 5 runs on 6 hits in the first inning. The Blue Jays bullpen was warming up behind him, but he has sorted things out, and the offense took over from there.
Well, and you know, a lot to be said, I think, today for Josh Thole behind the plate. He goes very unnoticed, and that's a great thing when you're a knuckleball catcher.
Thole takes it and throws to first. It's a foul ball. Bounced off the dirt around home and popped right up in the air.
Sometimes you talk about a home plate umpire. When he has a really good ball game, you don't really hear from him. You don't really notice anything. Well, that's what Josh Thole has done today. But more importantly, it's the day off for Russ Martin and that break from R.A. Dickey and catching the knuckleball. And this is going to do wonders, I think, down the stretch here. This might be a nice little match. The way R.A. Dickey pitches does not have a whole lot to do with Josh Thole behind the plate. It's a certain comfort zone. I think R.A. will tell you after this ball game, his mechanics are just out of whack a little bit today. It's got nothing to do with Thole behind the plate.
There's strike 3 called on Carlos Perez. That's the first strikeout for Dickey, and that was the problem early in the season. He wasn't getting any strikeouts, but since the All-Star break, he's been racking up the Ks.
Well, and I think a lot of it has to do with the movement on his knuckleball, and he talked about that in the last couple of months. He's been more aggressive with it, trying to throw it harder, getting more movement, more swings. Earlier in the season, just not the same.
Caleb Coward, the third baseman, has doubled and grounded out. We mentioned the Blue Jays will start that 3-game series against the Rangers on Tuesday night. Mark Burley will open it up for the Blue Jays. Then on Wednesday, David Price goes up against Colby Lewis. Price is 12-4 on the season. Colby Lewis is 14-5. Then Marco Estrada will wrap it up in the afternoon game, Thursday afternoon, against Giovanni Gallardo. Estrada a career high 11 wins. Gallardo is 9-9. Coward takes a walk. First walk issued by Dickey this afternoon.
Save during Canada's Color Expert Sale. Only at Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
One out. Grant Green steps in, the second baseman. R.A. Dickey checking with Goins to see who has coverage at the bag at second.
I've seen Dickey mix in a fastball on a very rare occasion. Earlier in the season, you'd see him throw 8 or 10 in a ball game out of 100 pitches. Saw ball 4 right there, but he's also been hurt by the fastball, both this year and last, so you're starting to see fewer.
Donaldson comes after it, makes a good throw to second. What a turn by Goins. Oh, my. Donaldson made the first step move. He came after that chopper toward third. And then Ryan Goins has been terrific turning double plays. Looks like the Angels are going to take a look at the call at first, but what a pivot by Ryan Goins over the bag at second.
And you talked about it, Buck. You talked about Josh Donaldson coming to get this baseball as an infielder. You see that hop right in front of home plate, you go get it. But Ryan Goins comes across this bag. He gets himself away from the runner so that he cannot break up that double play. Watch Ryan come across the bag enough so the runner can't quite get him. Gets a good, strong throw off, and it's right on the money. What a beautiful double play. Yet another one behind R.A. Dickey.
And a stretch by Smoke. The Angels retired in their half of the sixth. New pitcher in the ballgame is Cesar Ramos, making his 50th appearance of the season. Ramos has pitched in this series. He worked in Friday night's game.
Ramos got ERA at 2.11. Walked 11 and struck out 34 and 42 in 2/3 innings. A 4-pitch pitcher. Fastball will be around 90 miles per hour. Curveball, slider, and changeup.
Ben Revere takes a first pitch strike. Ben Revere has 8 hits in the 3-game series, including a 4-hit night in the opener on Friday night. He went 4 for 5 in that first game of this series. It was his second 4-hit game of the season. His first, of course, came with the Phillies. But it was his 14th career 4-hit game. Well, he thought it was going to be inside, then had second thoughts. He chased that breaking ball and strikes out.
So as a left-handed batter, this ball's coming right at you, so you're going to take, but then you realize it's going to come back and catch the inside corner. Look at the flinch right here. He basically stops his swing entirely. Realizes at the last second, I better try to take a hack at this. That's one Ben will want to forget after a great weekend.
Yeah, you don't look at the video of that one. Deanna Navarro will come off the bench and pinch hit for Josh Tolley. That suggests that R.A. Dickey's out of the game. Navarro goes after the first pitch, and it's a high fly to left. Murphy makes the catch, 2 down.
The 2015 Honda Civic is Canada's best-selling car for 17 years in a row and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
That's in Long Beach. That's the Queen Mary. That is now a museum. You can go aboard the Queen Mary and look at how it was set up when it was making those trips across the Atlantic. You ever seen the Queen Mary?
No.
My father went to England during World War II on the Queen Mary. And we got a chance to tour it, and they had a little setup about where the troops were bunked.
Cool.
They were stacked up like cordwood. They took 20,000 troops over in one trip. It's always kind of cool to see that. 9-5 Blue Jays. We're in the 7th. This is Ryan Goins. Well, he has had a great game in the field. Blue Jays have turned 3 double plays this afternoon, and Goins has been involved in all 3. The Blue Jays have a very effective roster right now. When you have Cliff Pennington to back up at short, second, and third, and he's a switch hitter. Then you have Smoke, who's a switch hitter, and he's the best first baseman the Blue Jays have. Goins knew it. So Ramos comes out, goes 3 up, 3 down with a couple of strikeouts. We'll go to the bottom of the 7th. Should be a new pitcher for the Blue Jays. It will be Brett Cecil coming on to work to Calhoun, Trout, and Pujols. Card for 17 years in a row and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Well, the Blue Jays fell behind early in this ball game, but Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion in the 4th inning with back-to-back home runs. Jose put the Blue Jays up 7-5. Edwin put them up 8-5. Blue Jays' power has really shone through. Edwin drilling this ball down the left field line. 2 power hitters in the middle of this Blue Jays lineup continue to mash this Angels pitching.
It's the 7th time this season the Blue Jays have gone back-to-back in homers, and it's the 11th time they have had a multiple home run inning. Brett Cecil takes over for R.A. Dickey. He'll start the bottom of the 7th.
Cecil working in his 46th game. Brett has not allowed a run over his last 19 games, covering 16 2/3 innings. Held opponents to a 190 batting average over that stretch. Brett worked just a 1/3 of an inning last night here in Anaheim.
Gianni Navarro came in as a pinch hitter for Tolle. He takes over defensively behind the plate as R.A. Dickey is out of the game. Same for Josh Tolle. R.A. Dickey in line for the win. He goes 6 innings, gives up 5 earned runs. He gave up 11 hits, walked a batter, and struck out 1 through 92 pitches. And he held his own. He didn't crumble after that 5-run first inning.
And that could have happened in that first inning, but the veteran R.A. Dickey was able to iron some things out. I'm curious just to find out maybe if something happened in between innings. A chat with Pete Walker, and sometimes your pitching coach can help you out in that situation. He really cruised along the rest of the way with the help of tremendous defense. We saw 3 very good double plays by Blue Jays defender, and then, of course, the throw from Kevin Pillar in left field. And Troy Tulowitzki holding that tag on David Murphy. Those things help as well, and Dickey really cruised through the rest of the way.
Top of the order, it's Calhoun, Trout, and Pujols. Calhoun is 1 for 2. He was hit by a pitch in the first and came around to score the first Angel run. He goes after the first pitch. Donaldson battling the sun, backpedals into foul ground. Tulowitzki right there just in case, and Donaldson makes the catch. 1 out, let's check in with Brad Fade.
Center fielder, number 27, Mike Trout.
The Twins tied it up against Zach Britton in the 9th there in Baltimore. Now they have taken the lead. Brian Mattis gives up the unearned run because of the error by Paredes. 9-5 Blue Jays. Mike Trout, he's had a perfect day. Joe, you predicted this with that last at bat he had in last night's game.
Well, we saw it last night. Great hitters will do that. They'll get into little ruts, but boy, when they start locking it in, watch out. Also mentioned last night, we were hoping Mike Trout, if he does heat up, it'll be after the Blue Jays leave town. So far, so good. He's had a great day today, but the Blue Jays holding on to this 4-run lead. Trout is one of those classic inside-out hitters. He really tries to stay inside the baseball, let the ball get deep, let it travel. And then, of course, he's got so much power that he can generate.
Brett Cecil. He tied the first man here in the bottom of the 7th. There's that inside-out swing once again, Joe, and he fouls it off.
It's almost refreshing for other hitters to see these great hitters struggle, because it just really helps you realize how difficult this game is, how difficult hitting is. Everybody's going to go through them. There's little slumps, but the great ones tend to make them shorter slumps, and they lock it back in sooner.
A good crowd on hand, and it's been 3 nice crowds for the Blue Jays here in Anaheim. 41,000 on Friday, 42,000 Saturday night, 37,060 here this afternoon, and a lot of Blue Jays fans in the house. Tulowitzki plays it beautifully, and Smoke digs it out of the dirt. Oh, what a good play on both ends. Tulowitzki never takes a play off, and he takes a hit away from Mike Trout.
Well, turn on the highlight reels tonight. Troy Tulowitzki ranging to his left. This ball's hit pretty hard by Trout. Clearly going up the middle. Tulo loves it. Ranging to his left on the one hop, and he knows Trout runs very well. He doesn't have time to stop and set his feet. He just throws off balance, and he knows with the glove work over there at first base, I don't have to make a perfect throw. Off balance throw, all it has to do is be in line, and he's able to do that. Look at the pick by Justin Smoke, reaching out, trying to make that hop a little shorter, picks it cleanly. What a play on both ends.
Albert Pujols. You know, first base gets discounted for its defensive importance, but right there you saw a perfect example of how valuable Justin Smoke is. And Tulowitzki's, he's one of the premier shortstops in all of baseball. For his career, he's committed 74 errors. This is his 10th season. When Justin Smoke starts at first base, the Blue Jays are 32-19. And you can look at his batting average and discount that. He contributes to a winning effort both sides of the ball. Pujols drills this one down the left field line. That's off the wall. Revere plays it perfectly, and he's going to hold Pujols to a long single. Pujols just missed hitting a home run, but Revere played it perfectly off the wall.
When you take another little sigh of relief, you're Brett Cecil on the mound. He knows that he left this pitch up, and right off the bat, you've got to believe that this ball is going out of the park with that short wall down the left field line, but it catches just the top of the wall. Revere plays it perfectly. Albert Pujols, of course, doesn't run real well, so he holds him to a single.
David Murphy, the cleanup hitter this afternoon, extended his personal hit streak to 7 straight with a single in the first inning. You know, when Alex Anthopoulos started to revamp this team mid-season, he put a lot of value and a lot of stock in defense.
He sure did. And it started with that trade with the Rockies acquiring Troy Tulowitzki at shortstop, probably arguably the most important position on the field.
And for Cecil, just think about the mindset of Cecil pitching now. He's got Tulowitzki behind him. He just saved him a hit. He's got Revere in left. He just saved him a double. And now he works to a left-handed batter, and it's a totally different mindset. He said, okay, I get Murphy out, I'm out of the inning.
You're not afraid to pitch to contact.
Oh, 0-2, 2 outs outside.
And I think the addition of Ben Revere in left field was paramount too. And Alex talked about that. He really put a premium on defense when they acquired him, because we had Chris Colabello and Danny Valencia, guys really that are infielders primarily, playing in the outfield. It's very difficult to play good defense that way. Justin Smoke we're seeing in the lineup more now at first base.
Well, and it goes hand in hand with the improved pitching. When you know you've got good defense behind you, you're anxious to pitch to contact. You don't have to be perfect. But earlier in the season, no matter who was playing out in left, it was an adventure.
And then you look at Josh Donaldson at third base, Tulowitzki, Martin behind the plate, Pilar in center. These guys are here for a while.
Cecil strikes out Murphy, and there will be a throw to first to end the inning. Cecil comes in and gives up a single and nothing more. We'll go to the 8th. What a bounce back game for the Blue Jays. They trailed by 4 at one point.
hosting the Baltimore Orioles during the first weekend of the month. Friday, September 4th, 7:07, and then Saturday and Sunday, September 5th and 6th for 1:07 starts. Go to BlueJays.com for tickets. Get them while you can. And speaking of the Orioles, Buck, they lose an extra innings today, and that means the Blue Jays continue to pull away from the rest of the pack in the American League East, other than, of course, those New York Yankees.
Yeah, the Twins won in 12 innings in Baltimore, and the Orioles lost a tough one. They had Zach Britton on the mound. He's charged with his third blown save. He gave up the RBI hit to Plouffe in the ninth. The Minnesota Twins used 8 pitchers today. Tommy Malone got the save, and I'll venture to say that's his first career save. He's a starter. But he picked up the save and wrapped up that win for Minnesota. New pitcher in the game is Joe Smith. And Tulowitzki gets a base hit back up the middle. His first hit of the afternoon. Don't let him get hot.
Well, that's what we said. As cold as he has been, we've talked about him an awful lot today in the field at that shortstop position. Just an outstanding effort all around by Tulowitzki. This guy is going to hit. This is a nice path right here, keeping the hands inside the baseball, driving it right back up the middle. A lot of times you'll see hitters, of course, they all talk about timing, but if they can kind of relax and let that ball come to them, that's what that looked like from Tulo, a very relaxed swing.
Josh Donaldson fouls off the first pitch. Donaldson has gone 1 for 3 this afternoon. Donaldson has scored another run. And that's significant because he leads the American League in runs scored with 94. And he also leads baseball with 100 RBIs. Ground ball, base hit, past Ibar in the left. Back-to-back base hits off Smith here in the 8th. Blue Jays might just want to scratch the off day tomorrow and say, okay, let's play tomorrow. We don't need an off day right now.
You don't want off days when you're swinging the bats like this. Another pitch, middle into Donaldson. That's the thing, when you're missing middle into a Josh Donaldson, you should be grateful that it was just a ground ball into left field for a base hit. I'm an Angels reliever today. I think I'd be hiding in that bullpen.
Yeah. Don't answer that phone if it rings.
It's not for me.
Jose Bautista, he's had a terrific day at the plate. Single, double, home run for Bautista. He's 3 for 4. Bautista and Encarnacion, number 3s and 4 in this lineup. They're 6 for 7 today. That's what's so challenging about this Blue Jays batting order. Down in the bottom, you've got Pilar and Revere. They're getting on base all afternoon. Tulowitzki only has 1 hit. Donaldson's got 2, and then you come up to 3 and 4, and you can't get them out. That ball went right through the catcher. And now Tulowitzki comes around third. Just flat out missed it. It was ball 4 to Bautista.
Mike Scioscia can't seem to figure out what the heck went wrong on that pitch. Looked like that good two-seam fastball. We talked about it all day. The movement on Garrett Richards pitches. Well, you're going to get it from Joe Smith as well. He's a sidewinder. The ball sinking down, and Carlos Perez just did not account for the sink on that baseball, which you have to be ready for. That's what his ball does. Throws predominantly fastballs.
Edwin Encarnacion with the bases loaded. Base hit to left. Tulowitzki's in to score. They'll move up 90 feet. Edwin with a 4-hit game. He's driven in 4.
They just keep coming at you. There's just no holes in the top half of this lineup. Edwin's getting about as hot as we've seen him, and anything thrown up there right now, he seems to be hitting hard in some direction.
6-10 his hit streak to 19 straight games. And he's done it with authority. A 4-hit game. 10 runs on 14 hits after they put up 15 runs on 20 hits last night. Popped up. The infield was in. Ibar has to retreat. Murphy, the left fielder, calls for it. Donaldson will hold at third. Smoke pops out to the left fielder. So first out of the inning.
Center fielder, number 11, Kevin Pilon.
Center fielder Kevin Pillar. Bases remain loaded. Pillar this season with the bases loaded has gone 3 for 10. He's picked up 4 RBIs with those 3 hits. Hooks this one foul. Blue Jays were kind of scratching their heads, wondering what happened to the offense. Just kind of dried up, but the pitching was so good they never missed a beat. They kept winning ball games. But the offense is back. They have scored 34 runs in this 3-game series. Pillar stays alive, fouls it back. 2-2. Another foul at home plate. Donaldson has singled. He's now at third. Bautista, he took ball 4. Another walk for Bautista. Encarnacion singled and drove in a run, his 4th hit of the afternoon. The bases are loaded for Kevin Pillar. That's a chopped ball to third, over the third baseman. That's going to be a base hit. Josh Donaldson comes in to score. That's the 11th run of this 3-game series. That's a franchise record. 35 runs scored in the 3-game series, the most the Blue Jays have ever scored in a 3-game series.
So I guess we could say this Blue Jays lineup is firing on all cylinders. Kevin Pillar just chopped that one into the ground, and when you're going good, you're going very good. The ball chopped over the head of Caleb Coward at third base. Kevin will take it. A little infield hit, an RBI in front of family and friends that have been watching him all weekend here in Anaheim.
And the bases are still loaded. Ben Revere goes after the first pitch. There's the throw home for 1, and that's all they'll get. The force out at home plate. Crown went to Perez to force Bautista at home. Leonardo Navarro will bat with the bases loaded and two outs. He flied out in his only previous at bat. That was as a pinch hitter in the 7th. What a series the Blue Jays hitters have had. And it's very timely. The Yankees lost, the Orioles lost, and the Blue Jays on the verge of sweeping the Angels. It will be the first season series win for the Blue Jays against the Angels since 2007. 1-2 to Navarro.
Well, you like to feel that your offense is on a roll like this moving into Texas, but this is going to be a tough series. The Texas Rangers playing much better baseball, going in the upward direction as opposed to the Angels that have really fallen off.
And Sanchez appears to be ready to come into the game.
But now they can strut their stuff and feel pretty confident going into this Rangers series, and that's a nice feeling for an offense. It's a nice feeling for the hitting coaches, both Brooke Jacoby and Eric Owens, just continuing to go about their business. And when you're firing on all cylinders like that, it's like don't change a thing.
Navarro ducks out of the way. The Blue Jays have outscored the Angels 11-5 here. That increases their run differential to a plus 160 for the season. They've outscored their opponents by 160 runs. This is a complete team.
Well, it is, and I think when you look at this Blue Jays offense, it's been a good offense all year. Of course, it's had some ups and downs, but really it was the pitching that was a big issue the first half of the season. But now that this pitching has come together, it's made a world of difference.
You know, what gets lost in this ball game because of the score is all the terrific defensive plays. Tulowitzki's had 2 terrific plays, fielding, and then the heads-up play to tag out Murphy at second. Pilar hustling the ball in. Scoops by Smoke at first. Double plays, 3 of them. Navarro strikes out on the 3-2 pitch. The Blue Jays leave the bases loaded, but they score 2 more runs in the 8th. We'll head to the bottom of the 8th. It's all Blue Jays. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Brad Fay and Greg Zoll.
Energized to go after the one person responsible for killing his friends. Don't miss an all-new episode tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern and Pacific, only on FX. Buck.
Thank you very much, Barry. And what a weekend it's been for the Blue Jays in Anaheim. And this will be Aaron Sanchez making his first appearance of the series. Sanchez pitched in the first 2 games.
Working in his 25th game of the season. 11 of those came as a starter before he suffered an injury at a strained lat that he had to come back from. Blue Jays put him back down in that bullpen. 37 career games now as a reliever. That goes back to last year as well. A 1.19 ERA. He's limited opponents to a 1.22 batting average. Sanchez worked a scoreless inning Tuesday in Philadelphia in the Blue Jays 8-5 win.
Brett Cecil had a clean inning. He gave up a hit and a strikeout. Now Sanchez will work to Eric Ibar to start the bottom of the 8th. Sanchez's family has been here all weekend long, and last night they had a promotion. Come and watch Barstow on display here in Anaheim. They had 860 fans come over from Barstow. It's about 109 miles away. Dino Ebel, the bench coach for the Angels, is also from Sanchez's hometown, Barstow, California. So they had quite a contingent here for the game last night.
The mayor, the police chief.
Nobody was home at Barstow. There's Dino Ebel. He has known Aaron Sanchez, and Aaron was in high school. He, in fact, encouraged the Angels to draft Sanchez when his draft day came up, but the Angels took some other pitchers ahead of Sanchez. But these two are both from a small town over in the desert in Barstow, California.
Eric Ibar's getting a little taste of Aaron Sanchez fastball. He'll be up 96 to 98 miles per hour. He's got good movement on that thing. One thing he's talked about is incorporating that curveball a little bit more. He hasn't done it a whole lot out of the bullpen, but now coming in against a team like the Angels, he does not see a whole lot. I expect to see a lot of fastballs right here this afternoon.
Bounced off toward first base. Smoke with the flip. Sanchez there in time. Good teamwork right there. Sanchez went after it once he recognized he couldn't get it. Smoke was there to back him up. Sanchez covered the bag.
That's some great athleticism right there shown by Sanchez, too. As a pitcher coming off the mound, the number one thing you're doing is going for the baseball. He realized he wasn't getting it. You had to see him veer and change directions to get over that bag, but nice job by Smoke in fielding it and giving him that good feed, and that's what it's all about. If you give him a bad feed right there, there's no way he catches the baseball and can find the bag. Nice job again on defense by the Blue Jays, both ends.
And there are a lot of things going on over at the first base bag, and you better have a good athlete over there catching that ball and making those tosses. C.J. Cron has had 2 hits this afternoon. Right back to Sanchez. This time he throws to Smoke, who's at the bag. 2 down. The Blue Jays kind of surprised the baseball world when they announced they had acquired Troy Tulowitzki. Everybody went, Troy Tulowitzki, we need pitching. Well, look at how much the pitching has improved since Tulowitzki has taken over at shortstop.
And Aaron Sanchez had just come back from his injury before that time, and then Troy Tulowitzki to stabilize the shortstop position defensively. Don't forget LaTroy Hawkins came in that deal, a nice veteran down there in the Blue Jays bullpen.
Those ranks are in Major League Baseball, and the Blue Jays have certainly turned their fortunes around since Tulowitzki joined this ball club. Ground ball. There is Tulowitzki as a bobble. Recovers in time to throw out Perez. Sanchez was an easy inning. Takes him just 9 pitches to retire the side in the 8th. Houston Straight might get another inning of work here this afternoon. Game series. As a team, the Blue Jays have hit nearly 400. The 35 runs in this 3-game series, that's a franchise record for most runs scored in a 3-game series. They've pounded out 46 hits, 16 extra base hits, and they've come up with big clutch hits, hitting with runners in scoring position.
Well, that's what happens when your offense is firing on all cylinders. First of all, it's a very deep lineup. There's so many weapons. You cannot pitch around too many hitters in this Blue Jays lineup because you're just going to run into another one. But they haven't just beat you with the long ball this weekend if you're an Angels pitcher. We've seen the big boys go the other way, taking a base hit the other way. Edwin's done it. Donaldson has done it. When they start doing that, you really have to wonder how you're going to pitch to these guys to get them out. And they've just been ambushing this Angels pitching all weekend.
Houston Street, he worked in last night's game. He threw 26 pitches, gave up a couple of hits in the 9th inning. He's not had an awful lot of opportunities to pitch lately. And it was Street who lost his composure after that inning of work, as the Angels have really fallen upon hard times. They are on the verge of going 9-21 in their last 30 games. Falling off the pace in the American League West. Brian Goins had a base hit against Street in that 9th inning. He had a single to center.
And just as frustrating for the Angels, they look up and see both the Rangers and the Astros continuing to win ball games.
At the start of play, the Angels 4.5 games back in the AL West in 3rd place. They're going to lose another full game for both Houston and the Rangers. But prior to the Angels' last 30 games, they were red hot. They won 17 out of 20. And they had taken over the lead in the AL West, but it was short-lived.
And you look at the numbers, they just have not done anything right. Offensively, they just have not swung the bats. Pitching has gone terribly wrong. And, of course, the defense. We've been talking about that all weekend in the errors.
It's the errors, it's the misplays, it's throwing to the wrong base, it's not completing double plays. Just about everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. And Goins lays off the pitch. It's a full count. There's a deep drive to right. This ball is going to get down on the warning track and bounce out of play. A ground rule double for Ryan Goins. His 11th double of the season. That leads off the ninth.
Well, as a left-handed hitter, you know what Houston Street is going to do. He's going to just pound the zone away, away, away. He's done it the whole at bat. And this pitch he left in the middle of the plate. Ryan Goins is able to barrel it up. He may have gotten towards the end just a bit, but just enough to get down there in the corner. Calhoun unable to make a play as it bounces in the stands for a double.
Troy Tulowitzki singled his last time. One and two.
Great location again by Street. You can see what he does. Left-handers, right-handers, he just continues to pound his way and relies heavily on his great location. He stays for the most part on the edges of the strike zone.
Off the plate. We mentioned the Angels, like the Blue Jays, will have tomorrow off. They will start a road trip on Tuesday at Detroit, 3 against the Tigers, then go to Cleveland for 3 more against the Indians before they come back to the West Coast on August 31st for a 3-game series against Oakland.
Don't often see a closer come into the ball game on back-to-back days in non-save situations, and that just, again, speaks to the higher straits that this Angels club is finding themselves in right now.
The Angels won 3 of 4 against the Chicago White Sox on this homestand, but now they're looking at the prospects of losing 4 straight, including all 3 to the Blue Jays. Tulowitzki shoots it to right. Cole Calhoun's not going to get there. Goins had to hold up to make sure it wasn't caught. Tulowitzki with back-to-back base hits.
Third baseman, number 20, Josh Donaldson.
RBI leaders in the American League. Josh Donaldson with 100. He's 11 ahead of Chris Davis. Bautista, he's had an RBI today. He is tied with Kendrys Morales of the Royals. Tied for 3rd. So Donaldson with 2 more hits this afternoon. He's had 8 hits in the 3 games. Bouncing ball up the middle. Ibar to Green, back to first, double play. Goins comes in to score. It won't be an RBI for Donaldson, but it's the 12th run for the Blue Jays.
Right fielder, number 19, Jose Bautista.
Ryan Goins with the double comes in to score. He continues to add to the Blue Jays franchise record for most runs scored in the 3-game series. They've now scored 36 here in Anaheim. Well, a little bit of icing on the cake for the series would be a Bautista triple right here. There hasn't been a Blue Jay hit for the cycle since 2001.
Might be the only thing we haven't seen this weekend.
And he had a triple in last night's game, had a 2-run triple off the wall in right center. Jose has had 3 triples this season. Jeff Fry against Texas. That happened at Rogers Center on August 17th, 2001.
That's exactly why you have to get your closer work in these situations to keep them sharp. Houston Street is a command guy, and to keep that great command, he has to pitch.
The top 4 Blue Jay hitters in this lineup have accounted for 11 of the hits. 11 of the 17 hits, 1 through 4 in the order. Bautista hits it right to the 3rd baseman. Howard has it. The inning is over, but the Blue Jays score again here in the 9th. We'll go to the bottom of the 9th. It's all Blue Jays. They're on the verge of sweeping the Angels in Anaheim.
return to September, and it is a stretch drive Blue Jay fans will likely never forget. And we will see 4 American League East rivals come into the Rogers Center beginning September 4th through the 6th with the Baltimore Orioles. The Red Sox follow, then the Yankees, and that could be yet another battle for first place in the AL East, followed by the Tampa Bay Rays at the end of the month. Tickets are going fast, and you want to get on board and jump onto this bandwagon, feel free to do so. BlueJays.com is where you go for tickets. Buck?
Going to be a great month of baseball coming up, and the Blue Jays on the verge of a 16-4 August with a win here today. Roberto Osuna, his first appearance in this series. Sanchez threw 9 pitches and retired the side in order in the 8th.
Osuna working in his 53rd game. He last worked Tuesday at Philly, got the save in a scoreless inning in that Blue Jays 8-5 win. Roberto has been outstanding at ERA under 2 now at 1.98.
Caleb Cowart, the third baseman, takes a pitch upstairs for a ball. Cowart doubled in his first at bat. He's gone 1 for 2 with a walk. Cowart's batting for just the 4th time, his 4th plate appearance. Top 3 hitters in the Blue Jays lineup have been to the plate 6 times today. Osuna has been so impressive in his rookie season, and he throws with so much ease. It's an effortless delivery.
Effortless delivery, and both catchers, Russell Martin and Diano Navarro, have told me that he's got an explosive fastball, an extra gear as that ball approaches the plate.
Yeah, hitters will talk about it being a fastball with finish. Like it's got a little extra skip at the end. Right back and gets the strikeout, 1 down. Now for a preview of what's coming up on Sportsnet Central. Here's Martin Gaillard. Thank you, Martin. That's all coming up right after this game on Sportsnet Central, so make sure you stay tuned. Grant Green, the second baseman. Look out. Right back into the broadcast booth next to us, and knocked their monitor right off the railing. And you got to have your head up here. Ball shoot back into the broadcast center.
That was coming in hot.
A low line drive. Boy, Osuna, he's really been impressive. As high as 97 in this inning.
And, you know, Roberto has secondary pitches. He's got a slider and changeup to go with that fastball, which he will use on occasion. But in a situation like this, you can see Diano Navarro, the veteran back there, just saying, you know what, get your work in here, young man. Let it go.
No chance. The overmatched Grant Green, back-to-back strikeouts for Osuna. The Blue Jays are an out away from sweeping the Angels.
This ball is absolutely by Grant Green. There's no reason to throw any other pitch. Diano Navarro knows that. Osuna just rearing back and getting his work in this inning.
Cole Calhoun fouls it straight back. The Blue Jays will go to 5-2 against the Angels for the season series. They'll win the season series for the first time against the Angels since 2007. This has always been a tough stop for the Blue Jays here in Anaheim. And that wasn't the case this weekend. Roberto Osuna has a lot of family and friends up from Mexico, and this is the first time they've seen him pitch in this series. What a punctuation point for a terrific series here in Anaheim. Osuna strikes out the side to seal the deal on the sweep.
Well, these Toronto Blue Jays were absolutely firing on all cylinders this weekend, and it all started with David Price on the mound in game one of this huge series. He was outstanding. He led them to that 9-2 win. Marco Estrada was okay on Saturday. R.A. Dickey fell behind today, but these bats came alive.
The Blue Jays have leapfrogged over the Yankees into first place. They have moved to 14 games over 500 for the first time this season. They will enjoy